I can ban myself from gambling. Why can't I ban myself from short-form, addictive social media content?
What do you...
I find it highly addictive. I want to be able to ban myself from YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Snapchat.
And we teachers and parents need to do our duty. And I think the government needs to help us. And I think too often what's said is, oh, but it'll be fine. Schools have banned phones, or parents should parent. It makes me really upset when people say that, because it's often from people who don't have children in 2025, and they don't know how difficult it is for parents to be able to keep their children offline, and they need support from the government. And I've been campaigning it for years, and I'm still campaigning. We should ban phones and social media for under 16s.
When it comes to the sort of the online behaviour, and this is a big area. The question was, should we limit or ban? I believe we should be very assertively limiting, and then moving to the point where we are incentivising healthy online behaviour. That means understanding what a healthy online life means for childhood. What does a healthy childhood look like online?
And I have seen over the years the children who rise from the bottom set up to the top set are the ones without the phones. Not always, but that is often the case. And the ones who come down are far more often on their phones. And I can see it. This is anecdotally, obviously, but I see the damage that they're doing to their little brains. And I haven't even got on to the mental health issues, the dangers that are online, the thousands and thousands of reported grooming cases. It's just...
I think there are measures that we can do to try and break the addictive nature. When I say a healthy online life, we talk a lot about what an offline healthy life is for children. We've done it for a long time. But for online activity, I think sleep is very important. I think focus on studying is very important. I think when you see the doom scrolling that's been talked about, I think there are interventions that can be made on a technical level that can break that cycle.
A user pleads for an off switch. Kyle suggests future software improvements. Now the addiction exists. His solution is still hypothetical. Make sure you like and subscribe.
I am a teacher with ADHD, and I think I have noticed how it's affected me and the children. The emotional regulation skills of these children is so poor because they're not having face-to-face interaction. If they were off the internet, they would find each other in real life, and then they would develop the emotional skills that they need to be on social media in the first place.
So smartphones are part of life now as young people and as adults.
Okay, but just in terms of mobile phones at schools specifically...
There is no place for smartphones in schools. They should not be used.
So, okay, so if 97%...
each individual school as to how they police that and whether they use lockers on the way in or pouches. Okay. That is up to them.
All right.
But there is no place, let me be clear. And then...
But then why not just... I mean, you've got Catherine saying... Catherine, you're desperately coming, but just one second.
Well, because it is the guidance. What you're saying is, do we pass a law? Do we go to all of the trouble of passing a law for it?
Why do you think there should be one, Catherine?
Because it is the case that, in theory, they're banned. Talk to the teachers. They'll tell you that the phones are coming out. The phones, they have... all altercations start on the phones. Now, look, there will be some schools that have actually managed to keep phones entirely out of their schools, but they will be in the minority. I promise you. Yes, it seems that 97% have banned, but just ask the teachers in the classrooms. They will tell you that the phones are a massive problem.
Okay. Frontline staff members report neurological damage. Kyle hides behind a decentralised policy already failing in classrooms.
And obviously legislation has had to change at a pace as social media has evolved. I was just wondering if we could hear what's going to happen in that space.
So just to be clear, are you in favour of more regulation or banning it altogether?
Well, I think at this point I would say more regulation would be a step towards a ban. I think banning it at the moment might be a bit of a step too far and is also very difficult to enforce. But regulation might be a sweet spot in the middle.
All right, I'm going to come to you in a moment on that, Peter. Yes, man in the black T-shirt in the middle of the audience towards the back.
I think we shouldn't ban it altogether. I think there should be, I agree with the gentleman here, there should be better regulation. A lot of youngsters look at social media to see news, like I did when I was younger. So I think there should be better regulation and a step maybe in the future to ban it, but I don't think there should be a ban altogether.
I haven't even got on to the mental health issues, the dangers that are online, the thousands and thousands of reported grooming cases. It's just... and the children who attempt, online, challenges, who then sadly have died as a result. It's just so upsetting and such an easy thing for us to protect them from.
There is very clearly addictive behaviour. I think we can tackle that addictive behaviour. I think there are measures that we can do to try and break the addictive nature. When I say a healthy online life, we talk a lot about what an offline healthy life is for children. We've done it for a long time. But for online activity, I think sleep is very important. I think focus on studying is very important. I think when you see the doom scrolling that's been talked about, I think there are interventions that can be made on a technical level that can break that cycle. And these are all things I'm looking very closely on at the moment, and we'll be making announcements.
How practically do you do that?
Well, we now have the powers to take down illegal content. Next month, in July, every piece of information that goes onto a platform must be age appropriate from 13 upwards.
Parents and young adults beg for a ratchet. Control first, ban if necessary. Kyle clings to co-regulation in line with the very corporate demand. The public charts a road to a prohibition. The minister acts as the first stop. Make sure you like and subscribe.
There's a lot of talk about policy and sort of making laws and legislation around it, but I want to know how often you consider what the young people believe about it. So
tell us what you believe about it.
So I'm 17. I'm not going to say I've got the greatest relationship with social media, but I'm certainly not as addicted to it as older generations might like to portray us as addicted to our phones, or, we're constantly on it. I just think no one ever involves what teenagers think in those conversations. And where do you draw the line between someone who's 15, not equipped to deal with social media, to 16, who is equipped to deal with social media? It's my same thought about the things we ban at 18.
If you were to bring out some kind of law, and I'm not saying it's easy, and I imagine it's very hard, the idea of standing up to these massive
it's not hard
companies.
to stand up to them.
Okay, well then do it.
It's not.
Okay.
But what you do is do what gets it right. You've heard from young people. The NSPCC policy on this is exactly as Tom has described. Young people have said consistently, and the ones that I've met, and it is many I've met to speak to this, with informal groups to try and gauge their opinion.
All of us adults have to work very hard at embracing the kind of traditional values that we all sort of know are the right values. It's just that we assume that children will have them, and they won't have them unless we teach them those and narrate them regularly and build habits in them over time, so that as they grow up, they become the kinds of people who live and breathe those values.
Kyle quotes chosen focus groups. A live youngster on his own programme reports the opposite, highlighting the discrepancy between manufactured consultation and actual young opinion.
Can I just see a show of hands? Who in the audience thinks mobile phones should be banned in schools? So that's most people. Why don't you do it?
Because 97% of schools don't allow use of phones in school already.
But hang on a second. But plenty of those schools still struggle with it, and people still bring in their phones. They spend a lot of their time saying to kids, "Get your phone back in your pocket," or it's not quite as straightforward as they don't exist.
Do not allow use of smartphones there. Now, look, phones are a fact of life. Parents like to be able to sort of track some kids, see where they are. They like to be able to be in touch with their kids on the way to school, on the way home from school. Kids use travel cards that are now on smart cards in their wallets. They use gym cards to get in that are in their digital wallets. So smartphones are part of life now as young people and as adults.
Okay, but just in terms of mobile phones at schools specifically...
There is no place for smartphones in schools. They should not be used.
Kyle's comfort figure is destroyed by the vote in the room and the reality check of the presenter. Paper policy is not policy in use.
They need to have a period without it first before they get onto it.
So would you want the government to ban social media for under 16s?
Yeah.
I mean, there are countries that Australia is going that way, is going to bring that in November.
Yeah.
And there are other countries that are looking at it and talking about it, but obviously not ours at the moment. Yes, there's a man there in the blue shirt, yeah.
So it'd be interesting to hear from the Secretary of State, given that we've seen documented evidence of harm to children, real-world harm to children, things like suicides, things like bullying, etc., etc., whether we can hold social media companies to account in a kind of more robust way than we currently do.
Commits a criminal offence that could result in...
Sure, but the 15-year-old is not going to get it.
What laws do is they change culture. And then once the law is there, then the culture changes. When the parents are saying, oh my goodness, I don't know, my child is going on a hunger strike, my child is moving out because I'm saying he can't have a phone because of the fear of missing out, and everybody's on a phone and I don't know what to do. The only safe social media, the only safe use of the online world is supervised online world.
So what we're talking is, it is government policy that you do not have smartphones in schools. What you're saying is pass a law. So who do we send to prison and fine? Who do you want me to pass a law to fine?
Other democracies legislate. Kyle withdraws into slippery slope theatre, rejecting the same instrument nations are currently using, law.
You know, when I think about poor Ellen Room, whose poor boy at 14, she thinks he did some kind of challenge off TikTok. He is now dead. She can't win against TikTok. She just wants to know what her son was doing online, and she can't even find out that information now that he's dead. We have people in the audience saying, I'm so addicted. All of these, Snapchat, Instagram, all of them employ addiction teams of people who are making everything in such a way so that people are so addicted they can't put it down, and those are adults, let alone children, whose brains have not properly developed yet. And then once the law is there, then the culture changes. When the parents are saying, oh my goodness, I don't know, my child is going on a hunger strike, my child is moving out because I'm saying he can't have a phone because of the fear of missing out, and everybody's on a phone and I don't know what to do. The only safe social media, the only safe use of the online world is supervised online world.
So take it away when actually it can be used beneficially. You mentioned drinking, you mentioned smoking. There's no safe way for a 16-year-old child, a 13-year-old child to smoke. There is healthy ways, which we've just heard about, to use this technology. Let's double down on what incentivises the health, and let's protect children from the unhealthy behaviour. But trying to
you've
ban
made that point. Jack, you're looking very sceptical.
Well, I think there's a crisis happening, and I don't think you solve a crisis with a small sticking plaster. I think we've got to do something radical. The worst statistic I heard about this is the NHS statistics, which says in the last 10 years, the incidence of accidents happening outside have dropped by 70% amongst teenagers. At the same time, the incidences of self-harm have risen by 93%.
Young people have said consistently, and the ones that I've met, and it is many, many I've met to speak to this, with informal groups to try and gauge their opinion. I didn't meet any that want it removed from their lives, but I meet many who want help managing it.
Birbal exposes the asymmetry. Parents hear homilies about balance. Silicon Valley recruits PhDs to hook children. Kyle volunteers families for a fight they cannot win and confuses ubiquity for inevitable truth.
Well, I think there's a crisis happening, and I don't think you solve a crisis with a small sticking plaster. I think we've got to do something radical. The worst statistic I heard about this is the NHS statistics, which says in the last 10 years, the incidence of accidents happening outside have dropped by 70% amongst teenagers. At the same time, the incidences of self-harm have risen by 93%. Our kids are really, really in trouble. And I don't think the answer to that is by doing little things. I think we need to do something quite big because we need to protect them from that. And
that means understanding what a healthy online life means for childhood. What does a healthy childhood look like online?
But how does that work when the incentive for the tech companies is to... No, but you're talking about a healthy life online in terms of limiting the amount of time people spend on it. How are you going to do that?
So we can pass laws for this, we can pass regulations for this, and yes, we are working very closely with the tech companies to understand what the technology is that can be brought to bear for it. Now, look, let me just
very briefly, because I want to bring in the rest of the panel.
OK, so we have to understand that a 17, 18-year-old child who's 17, 18 now was born the year the iPhone was released. They've never known a life without smartphones.
When Thorne spots an emergency, Kyle provides wellness phrases. Teachers, statistics, and the audience all point to one cure, a legislative ban he is not inclined to consider. From the mass show of hands to the gambling analogue's plea, every grassroots voice deserves firm response. Peter Kyle responds often with voluntary constraints, inconsistent data, and hypothetical fixes, proving, point after point, exactly why he is mistaken. Let us know what you think down below in the comments.